And joining us now on the line is James Carafano, all-round smart guy when it comes to international affairs. James, good morning to you.
Hey, good to be with you.
Hey, listen, let's start off. I want to talk. There's a lot of things that we need to talk to you about, but let's start off by talking about the ongoing negotiations with Iran. The Secretary of State, John Kerry, has said that, look, the president is fully prepared to walk away if the deal is not right. And a lot of people look at it and say, well, it doesn't sound like the deal is really all that right. What's your sense of where these negotiations are and where are they going?
Well, they're going to cut a deal. Going to that, the president's desperate for that. He's sculpted his entire Middle East strategy around that, and the Iranians know that. So what they're doing at the 11th hour is they're walking in with really kind of ridiculous additional, things just to see what they can get. But, the Iranians are going to sign a deal, and they know that this isn't going to last 10 years, and they don't care. They get $50 billion, $150 billion for just a year or two. That's really enough to kind of get them back in the game, and that's all they care about.
So you think that a deal will be struck because so much effort has been put into it and you can't walk away and not get something?
Yeah, I mean, the Iranians just at the point where they just get too good a deal for them to walk away. And they've already gotten all the goods in the bag. The administration is so committed to this. They put so much into this. It's easy for the president to say he's going to walk away when he knows he's not going to walk away. So it's really now, it's just when they sign, not if.
I got to ask you, James Carafano, I think a lot of people who look historically at U.S. negotiations with our adversaries, they look at things like Reagan walking away from Reykjavik and saying no deal with Gorbachev is actually what ended up winning the Cold War because we didn't bail Gorbachev out. And you talk about having to set firm deadlines and forcing your adversary on the other side of the table of putting up or shutting up. Well, listen to this real fast. This was Kerry last week about the deadline for these talks.
We have our own sense of deadline.
We have our own sense of deadline. And then yesterday he said this about today, July 7th.
We're currently pushing, as we've all said, for the 7th.
As we've all said, through the 7th. And then yesterday also the spokesperson at the State Department said this.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what the 7th is and what it isn't. It's not a deadline.
It's not a deadline. So they've delayed this deadline. I mean, really, James Carafano, are they amateurs at this point, or are they just,
Well, this may come as breaking news to you, but Barack Obama is not Ronald Reagan.
Really? I hadn't noticed.
Look, the problem here is this. There is no good deal to be got. I mean, if your only goal is getting rid of the Iranian nuclear weapons program, and if having a nuclear weapons program is absolutely a vital interest of the Iranians, no good can come of this. So this whole process really is kind of ridiculous. So I can't get terribly upset about missing deadlines and whatever else, because it was a bad idea to begin with. It's kind of like making the pact with the devil. It was never going to work. So, I mean, the tragedy is already, the tragedy's already been struck. The ship's sinking, Captain. And now it's just dealing with the aftermath, which we know is going to come.
What the Obama administration will say is having no deal means that Iran has no one inspecting and no one looking at them and no one keeping them in check, and they will get the bomb either way. What's the response to that?
Yeah, and that's exactly what we said about North Korea, and look how that turned out.
All right.
James Carafano is our guest from the Heritage Foundation. Okay, James, let's talk about this other thing that's going on. President goes over, meets with the Pentagon brass yesterday to talk about how they're going to defeat ISIS. He said a really incredibly stupid thing. In fact, here it is now.
Ideologies are not defeated with guns. They're defeated by better ideas, a more attractive and more compelling vision.
So I got a couple of questions for you here. First of all, your reaction to that statement. And secondly, are the brass able to tell the president truly what they think should be done? Or do they know that there are certain things they just simply cannot talk about with this president?
Yeah, so, so my response to the first question is I tweeted it out yesterday. It's the iconic picture of Dwight D. Eisenhower talking to the troopers from the 82nd Airborne before they jumped into Normandy. And the quote is, as soon as you get on the ground, find the SS and argue ideology with them. Look, I mean, the other thing is, look, the whole at the Pentagon was just a photo op, right? I mean, it's ridiculous that the president was going over and consulting with these guys. First of all, if the president wanted to consult with those guys, he doesn't have to walk over to the Pentagon to do that. They come to him. And what did he say afterwards? Basically, he said everything's working, everything's fine. So this was clearly just a designed to allow the president to just say, like the captain of the Titanic, we think there's a small leak, but everything's going great. And isn't it a coincidence that it happens right before Carter and the chairman go to Congress to testify about the Iraq strategy? So the whole thing's it's just politics. It has nothing to do with the president actually reviewing the strategy or being serious about defeating ISIS. That's just a fact.
What about the larger picture here in terms of these military advisors? Their role is to tell the president how it really is and to give him the best military advice. Is that happening and he's ignoring it, or are they just giving him bad advice?
There's no evidence that the military is actually giving clear and honest advice to the president. I mean, we have a long track record of people who have done that, and they've been fired or marginalized. So, I was in the Pentagon. I was in the Army for 25 years. I went through this in the 90s with the chiefs in Clinton, where they tried to be the loyal, good soldiers and support their commander-in-chief, but largely, many times, disagreeing with the commander-in-chief and trying to be honest about it. But it just doesn't work very well. And I think, to be honest, and I hate to say this because I'm sure they have long, distinguished careers and they're faithful service, but I think the military senior leaders have poorly served their country.
All right, and one more new topic, if I could, please. And yesterday we had this thing out at Walter Reed, lockdown there. Somebody said they heard a gunshot, and there was a huge police response to it. Turned out nothing happened there. Same thing earlier down at the Navy Yard. Somebody said they heard a shot. Huge police response. What is going on? Because I'm getting the sense that that there wouldn't be such a huge and very quick and rapid police response unless there was some intelligence out there that made them ready for such a thing.
Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think we learned our lesson after the Navy Yard shooting 2 years ago. Is when you have a suspected, what's called an active shooter incident, you respond early and massively. And I think the police did exactly the right thing. It's the kind of thing we want them to do. It's just like a fire alarm. The fire alarm goes off and all the police engines race to the scene and there's no fire. People say, well, that's just part of the price of good public safety. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the situation here. I think the police did the right thing. We know there's an active terrorist threat out there. We've had 71 plus Islamist-related inspired terrorist plots since 9/11. We've actually had half a dozen of those in just a few months and several in just a few weeks. So we know there's an active threat out there without any intelligence. And, like with a fire alarm, when you have an active shooter alert, good public safety suggests that you rush to the scene, better to err on the side of caution.
James J. Carafano, thank you so much for joining us from the Heritage Foundation.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, always James. A pleasure, James.